Welcome to Moving Mountains, the podcast about data and AI applications in logistics. Expect to hear the latest and hottest of what is moving the industry. Your host, Mark Verheyden, is a tech veteran on a mission to make logistics companies harvest the power of their data.
Hi everyone, we're here with the first podcast and vlog because it's a two-in-one of data and AI in logistics. And today I have a host with me. It's Jan van Elderen, who will introduce himself in a minute. A bit about myself. I have a background as a founder of Nimion, which is a data and AI service company specifically aimed at logistics companies. And today, Jan, he comes more from an academic background. So please, Jan, can you also briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Jan van Elderen. I'm a lecturer in IT Logistics and also researches at Breda University of Applied Science. And I'm also part of my job is being an AI pioneer within the whole academy of the whole University of Applied Sciences, so all academies. And I'm the expert in AI and logistics and everything that is involved there.
All right. No, sounds really cool. And that's also the perspective that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. It's because we're mostly stuck in business with, our own ideas and our own ways of doing things. So it's interesting to get another background. But so following up on the fact that you have a background in academia and research, mm-hmm. Do you think that there is like a disconnect between both worlds? And if yes, how do we bridge those gaps?
I think it's a really interesting question, first of all. I think that these two worlds are basically the same world, but we see them as different worlds. If you're looking at the pure scientific way of looking at the world, we're trying to explain the world, but basically what we're trying to do is get more knowledge, right? So add something to the body of knowledge. On the other hand, the business side, we're really interested in what is the value for companies? What is the value for the world? So you're looking at the world from different perspectives. But if you look at in the middle, you're trying to make some kind of artifact. You're trying to make something that you could state, hey, this is built upon the knowledge that we already have on one hand, but on the other hand, we can use this in the business side. And the moment that these worlds come together, and this is more the applied science, right? And this is something that we're doing at Breda University all the time.
Okay.
We are a university of applied sciences.
Right.
Which means that they come together in a design.
Okay.
And then you can say, hey, this design will help us out in the world.
Right.
But will also help us out in starting to understand the world a little bit better and adding knowledge to the body of knowledge.
Okay. That's super interesting. Like if I go a bit deeper on that, is there like one particular book you like or that came out of at the crossroads of those two worlds?
Well, if you're looking at AI, there's a book, and this is produced by Harvard, which is called All In on AI.
All right.
This is purely on AI, but just going back to your question, one of the things that helped me out a lot is it's a scientific model from a person called Havner.
Okay.
He created a framework which is called design science research. And there's also an important one by Peffers, who is creating a methodology on how to do this kind of research.
Right.
And this model shows what I just explained, right? So we have a body of knowledge, we have a scientific world, we have a business need, and how to make sure to combine them. And if you use this model, you can explain even to a non-scientific person in a really simple way how these kind of things work together and how we can create something, right? That's called design.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting because in business we often talk about, well, at least in the data and AI business, we often talk about creating data and AI products.
Yeah. And
we do get a ton of questions from prospects as well as customers. How can we make sure we don't miss the train, that we jump on it and that we hold on and that we catch it, definitely. And so the first question they ever ask us is, what's the low-hanging fruit? So can you, from a logistics company's perspective, talk about the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, well, I think the question that you just popped up, right? So what is the low-hanging fruit or basically what can we get out of this? And also being afraid to miss the boat is something that we touch upon at the university all the time, right? Because we're teaching our students for the future. So we have to think about that as well. First of all, and then I'll get back to your question, but it's important to say that AI is not new. We started out with ChatGPT. We started out with all kind of solutions, large language solutions. which are awesome because they are able to translate the technical part to a user interface, to a user interaction, which means that non-technical people can use it, right? It's the same as a car. You cannot build a car, but you can use the car. So now everybody's like, yeah, this is new. But basically, it's really old because most of the AI solutions, well, basically all the AI solutions are based on statistics, right? It's
Exactly.
about predicting what the future will bring and forecasting, etc. And these kind of solutions are already there in logistics a lot of time. Things like forecasting of your sales. Really simple. If you are doing logistics, well, in the end, your customer is your endpoint, right? So you have to go from raw material, depending on the scope of your supply chain, you have to go from the raw material all the way to the end customer. So you have to forecast. And based on your forecasting, you make decisions on your stock levels.
Right.
And where do we put the stock, etc. And 20 years ago, there were already quite great algorithms that could help you out in sorting these kind of challenges. The only difference is that in 20 years ago, it was a really technical thing. And now we're starting to get more to a world where low-hanging fruits is available in the simple form of an Android app or an iPhone app or a simple solution over the internet. So the level of technical knowledge that you have is getting less. Going back to your question about the low-hanging fruits, I think one of the things that should be most low-hanging, and it's of course depending on where in logistics you are, is most of the time it's about forecasting. It's about predicting sales. It's about predicting actually your resources needed based on that sales, so in your supply chain. And it's also about things like forecasting how much transport do we need, what is the maintenance of our machines, etc. And the systems can help you out, can support you in making better decisions.
Right. Okay, so starting out with still the forecasting thing would be a great thing after or even before moving into the newer technologies such as large language models, etc. Okay, now clear. Also, I mean, going further down the road of LLMs and, the large language models, we get a lot of questions about ChatGPT. I mean, that's oftentimes a number one topic. And for a lot of customers, so it seems it has become a synonym almost of AI. We do counter it by saying indeed a lot of the old stuff, and we're talking about the predictive modeling, was already there 20 years ago or even longer. So I mean, I do get the hype, or where the hype comes from, but do you also see actual useful cases being implemented around that technology in logistics? Or is that something that is just a hype, it's just a gimmick and drop it?
Well, first, I don't think it's a hype, right? It is there, and now it becomes available for the broader audience. So I think that it is not a hype, right? And I know that if you look at a hype cycle from Gartner, that there's always big expectations, and then it's not doing what we expect it to do, right? And all the technologies have that. Blockchain has that a lot currently. But the main difference is that it actually is already there in a simple way. And you just stated it's like a synonym, right? ChatGPT is AI. Well, I remember when we started making copies, we said we want to create a Xerox. Or when we are ordering a cola, we order Coca-Cola, right? Why? Because it is something that is used the most, and people can use that. So I think that there's a lot of potential there, but basically it all starts, and this is quite old-fashioned, but it all starts the input, which is the data.
Absolutely.
And in logistics, you always say garbage in is garbage out, right? So if you want to create a great algorithm that forecasts all, we don't have the data, or it's not available on time, or it's not the right quality, then we have a problem.
Right.
And the data actually does not start with technology. Well, it's part of technology, but human and processes are also involved there.
Absolutely.
So that means that part of the use cases or the business cases that will arrive in the future on AI is more focused on the human side and the process side. And if the data is there, well, then we can start using algorithms. And I've seen quite some really interesting algorithms that can help out in, like I stated, forecasting better, but also saying, hey, what will happen in the future? So you can be more agile and react more faster on changes in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd like to move to painting a really realistic picture of the day-to-day business we experience at our company. And that's, we mostly serve, let's say, 3PL companies, so third-party logistics companies, occasionally also carriers and forwarders or brokers. But let's say mainly 3PL companies today. And let's say a medium-sized 3PL company, they've implemented a transportation management system and a warehouse management system, sometimes abbreviated as TMS and WMS, let's say 2 years ago. So they're accustomed to using it. They are generating data through the system, but also through human activity. Yeah. And now they're looking at how can we start building an AI product? Is that something that is the logical next step for them? Or do you think, okay, wait, guys, I mean, we have so many steps that are in between. Don't jump on that topic just yet.
I think if you have a really clear business value that you want to achieve, right? So if you have a transport management system and you have a warehouse management system and you want to, for example, forecast better on your transport based on your data from the warehouse and to see some patterns there in the movement of different goods, I think that the next step could be implementing some algorithms there, trying to see whether what we can learn from the data. Okay. On the other hand, and I'm repeating myself a little bit, but the challenge there is most of the times when you are using legacy software, so old software, there's a different structure in data. Right. There's different data interfaces. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to prepare the data. Mm-hmm. Are we going to extract the data from the system, load it into another system, and then transform the data? Right. Are we going to load the data into a big lake, not structured, and then based on the needs, are we going to structure it, so then transform it, and then put it into case? And these kind of questions, which is more focusing on the whole data management, information management field, are things that most of the time are killing any AI solution there is. Because if you don't have the right data, and not only the right data, but also at the right time, because this is something challenging as well, and you are also lacking people with knowledge about what we can do with the data. Well, then you can buy a car, that's great, but if you don't know how to drive, don't buy the car. Absolutely. I think it might be interesting to clarify a few things to our audience, because this is just to make sure it's a vlog aimed mostly at non-technical people. And we're talking about data lakes and data warehouses. And I mean, many of the people in charge of like the medium-sized 3PL company, I'm not talking about the larger ones, it's a different ballgame, but like, let's say the medium-sized ones, they do have questions about what does that mean exactly, a data lake and a data warehouse, and why can't we just, use AI? I mean, that's like a question we get asked often. Why can't we just use AI? Why do we need all those things in preparation of what eventually delivers the business value? I get exactly the same question all the time, because the moment you start talking in technical languages, and excuse me for doing that in a way, I think that then you lose people. Right. And when we are in a management meeting with the managers from these kind of companies, or even in our internal management from the University of Applied Science, what we always try to do is make it as simple as possible, right? So in the end, we ask the question. We want to assume that we want to have better decision making, right? We want to make decisions. Yeah. So what we want to do, we want to create value for our customers. We want to do it in a compliant way. So we want to follow the law. Well, we have to follow the law, of course. We want to do it as agile as possible, so as fast as possible, and also being flexible in that, in a way that you could change your direction the moment you want, right? If you want to do that, you also want to reduce risks. And if you ask this kind of questions to the management, they will say, yes, of course. Okay, so what you basically want to do, you want to adjust your behavior by making the right decisions, right? And you want to make the decisions in 3 levels. You want to make the long-term decisions, so strategical decisions, but also the operational decisions, right? By the way, this is something, the operational part, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there.
Okay.
How do you do that? Well, basically, you do a lot of analysis, right? 3PL companies, most of the time, do analysis one time in Excel.
Right.
But you can use Power BI, you could use whatever. And these kind of words, these kind of language is understandable for the managers. So you want to do the right analysis. But you can only do analysis if you have the right information available, right? So
exactly.
If you want to forecast something, well, you need sales data. As simple as that.
Yep.
And this is information. But one level lower, below the information, is the non-structured way of putting the information into systems. If you look at an Excel file, there's rows and there's columns, right?
Yes.
And these kind of simple databases are the basis of the foundation of making any analysis that helps you making any business decision. So if you want to do it in a efficient way, but you also want to be effective to your customers, because in the end, it's all about the business need, right? Or what does our customer want? Then you have to make sure that you have the foundation. You can build a complete house, a great looking house, but if you haven't put the concrete in the ground first, then we have a problem. And in the past, this was something that, well, if you had one smart guy in the company that could fix it all, and he knows how it works, you can have a lot of quick fixes, right? So you're still being effective. You have the good service to your customers, but now the data explodes, and now the potential of the algorithms explodes. So that even more important. The pressure will be put more on the foundation of your house. So I think that is one of the reasons. And the second reason is even more business-wise, which is compliance. We have to be compliant in the world, right? We have laws in Europe. We have the GDPR, which means there's privacy laws. There is an AI Act available, and it will be more and more. We are going to report out on sustainability, right? So what is our emissions? That means that you have to report out. And if you don't have the data in your foundation available in the right way, you will be slow, really slow, which means you have to put in a lot of resources there. More people, more machines, more computing power. So it will cost you a lot more money. And your customer just wants to have better service, being more agile. So again, you need this foundation, which is the data.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the ways we go about it as consultants as well. I mean, we have 3 teams in our company. It's a BI team, a data engineering team, and an AI team. And let's say that BI is often they are often the ones leading the pack.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have to go through a lot of, basic setups, reporting, making sure people get accustomed to using their own data. And then afterwards they think, hey, I saw this Power BI dashboard about the sales numbers, and I have the impression that we're selling more of these goods during summer. Hey, would this be a trend? And then they're looking into, can we forecast, right? And then they're building out an algorithm or an AI product. So indeed, I also see that there's a lot moving, but still we have to set up, oftentimes a lot of the basic stuff.
I totally agree. I think that's like a continuous improvement, connecting the data with the business. So business IT alignment is important. On the other hand, I think that even the business side becomes more important.
Yeah.
What's your goal? What do you want?
Exactly.
And based on the needs from the business side, there's a lot of solutions that you can then start implementing. But right now, AI or data management is an IT thing, which is strange, right? Because if you're looking at data, we're talking about people, we're talking about processes. We do not only talk about technology and we put it in the technology code.
Absolutely.
And then, sorry to simplify, but if you are putting an IT person in charge of the business, he will fail.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the knowledge about what is needed for the customer.
Exactly.
What is compliant? What is agile? And the next part is that they will probably, if they have a little bit sense and a little feeling there, create a system that is really bureaucratic, really slow moving, and a system that basically says no. While in the business side, you want to have a system that says, yeah, we can do that.
But I do think, if I may nuance that point of view, I also think there's some responsibility there in the hands of the business people. right? Getting more data savviness.
Definitely.
The other day I reached out to a warehouse director of a pretty, well, it was a large, medium sized, let's say, company. I said, okay, can we talk about how data is basically improving procedures in the warehouse? I'm not the right person to talk to, he said. It's IT. And then I'm like, okay, how's this is not possible? It's your business. Yeah. It's not IT's business, right?
So when we as a university made the strategic choice to become leading in AI, right? So we are focusing on being leading in AI in education, in operations, but also in research. Yep. One of the very first steps that we took was that we said everyone, including all the supporting staff and operations, needs at least a foundational level of knowledge. So we created a course that we said everyone, and it's mandatory. So if you don't go there, you have to talk to your manager. Everybody should follow this course. And the first ones to follow the course are the higher management people. We need management commitment. If there's no management commitment and they don't understand the basics behind that, and our management is now reading a lot regarding these kind of subjects to get more savvy. But everybody needs this level. And the funny thing is then all of a sudden, a lot of ideas pop up from the business side because they feel the pain in the operations. They feel the pain in education. And they see a potential link. So you start to talk more to each other.
Right.
And from the whole organization, the next question is, okay, we want to have an advanced course.
Yeah,
we need more.
Makes sense.
Having said that, what we also saw is when we talked to the world out there, different companies, because we are a University of Applied Science, right? So we are directly connected to the industry. We saw that a lot of industry partners, they were so interested in this course that we are now not only giving this course inside of a university, but also outside to companies, to other universities, to governments. Why? Because if you have basic knowledge, you have less assumptions.
Yes.
And it's not about the technical algorithm parts. No, it's about what is it? What is a large language model? What does it do? What doesn't it do? Because people think it can solve everything. Well, I don't think it can, but depending on how you use it, it can help you a lot with making decisions.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things we've been talking about foundations, we've been talking about data infrastructure in a way, because we briefly already touched upon those technical concepts like data warehouse, data lakehouse, etc. However, when we look at the vendors themselves, the software vendors who are building warehouse management systems, transportation management systems, they are already implementing AI features into their own tooling. And so we do get, I think, the obvious question from business leaders. Why don't we just wait? Why do we have to invest in that data infrastructure? Can we just use what is already available in those SaaS tools? So SaaS, by the way, is software as a service tools. What's your take?
Well, I think it's a smart way of looking at it from a business point of view. Sometimes it's depending on the field that you're in, right? So if you are just doing transport from A to B of some warehousing things, what's the benefit of being the front runner? On the other end, if you want to create value for your customers who are, for example, in a field where there's a lot of improvement in technology and risks, for example, in the medicine world, right? Warehousing in medicines, well, it could help you out sometimes in being a front runner because you can add value. And this is something that, of course, big companies like the bigger 3PL, the 4PL companies are currently doing. They are trying to seek where can we add value to our customers. This is part one. The other part is just really simple. Well, there's compliance, right? There's law. So you need to do that anyway. You cannot wait until everybody invented the wheel. Well, sometimes you have to do it in your company as well to make sure that you're compliant.
Absolutely. Talking about investments. Can we, these things don't come for free, right? They have been democratized in a way, because talking about data warehousing, for example, 10 years ago, it was a totally different price tag than when you talk about data warehousing today. Prices have been slashed at cloud vendors. Everything got more expensive, but that actually got more affordable. Exactly. So it got more affordable, but still, can we have a reasonable expectation of getting return on investment in the first year of these kinds of investments?
Well, if you're at level 0,
Yeah.
so there's nothing at all, and you start using tools, there can be smart wins. And this is something, for example, customer services and logistics service providers. Well, sometimes they have 10 people sitting there.
Uh-huh.
Well, 99% of the questions are repetitive questions, right? Why not create a system that basically answers these questions? And without being technical, you can create your custom chatbots.
Right.
And
Right.
again, we tested a lot with that. And then the main question is what to put into the system.
Yes, yeah.
So it will actually give good answers. But you can have a return on investment quite fast, right? Because you can just calculate, this is the price of my chatbot. This is what we approximately pay. This is the amount of hours spent by humans. And we can, well, remove this, or remove is the wrong word, but we can make sure that these humans are put into a place where there's value created for the customers without doing this stupid repetitive tasks.
Yes.
So yes, in the beginning, yes. On the other hand, it's the same as when internet was just invented.
Mm-hmm.
We were finding out the potential value of the internet. I remember that web shops didn't exist. There was no e-tail. There was no social media, etc. And when you ask someone back then, what could be the potential value, they didn't even come up with these kind of things. And now it's like truth cow, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just there. Everybody understands the value.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the next part is that a lot of things are not tangible, right? Knowledge.
Right.
How can you calculate the return on investment of your people being educated?
Right.
Well, you can see, look at the people that go away.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you see what the value is of them making better decisions by using systems in a better way? Sometimes it's really hard to calculate that. So it's also depending on the level of business case that you have. Operationally, right. I do think it's possible.
Okay.
You can just calculate because you have a process.
Yeah.
You have moment A, moment B.
Right. Okay.
Possible.
And so what if you decide not to invest? I mean, some people just are not interested in freeing up budgets, whatsoever. So what will happen? I don't invest. I'm a 3PL company. I don't invest in that. In data, I don't invest in AI.
Well, if you are a 3PL company, your margins are low, right?
Yep.
We know that the transport companies only have like 2%, 3% margin, sometimes even minus. And if you have one person too much in the warehouse, then all of a sudden you get red numbers.
Yep.
If other companies are able to improve by only 10%, they will be cheaper. And if you look at 3PL markets, most of the time it's contract based. So it means that you have a contract for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, you hope to have a long-term contract so you can work together more, but most of the time it's short-term.
Yeah.
And if your competitor is 10% cheaper, you go to the competitor. So I think it's a big risk. On the other hand, depending on the customer segments that you're in, some sectors are more going into there and other sectors are less going. But it's really depending on the business that you're in.
Okay, so can I summarize as that it will help doing things cheaper, better, faster? Is that kind of the way?
Well, yes, but that's the road down the bottom, right? So that's something you do not only focus on the money, but you want to be more effective.
Okay.
Efficient way. So you could even offer new services to the customers.
Yep.
Perhaps a customer of a 3PL company doesn't have insights in his own sales patterns, right? You just said a while ago about seasonality.
Yeah.
If I know as a 3PL and I know what's going on and I can predict the future more, I can give this knowledge back to my customer, and then all of a sudden you have a relationship. Yeah. Which is, I think one of the most important things to have in logistics, because that makes a long-term win-win situation more.
Yeah. And so, we're talking about what will be the result if we don't invest, but what's the worst that could happen if you decide to start using data and AI? Some people are really scared.
I get that, definitely, because, privacy.
Yeah.
The data is out there. What if your competitors have your data?
Yeah.
And if you use the systems in the wrong way, again, not you, but if your people that are working in your company are using the data in the wrong way,
Yeah.
putting it into a system that pops it out all over the world, and we have data leaks, well, that is a really big risk.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because if you have data leaks, well, your customers won't be happy. I think one of the biggest risks is that you start using AI solutions with the AI solution as a goal.
Right.
So you have to remember that in the end, it's all about proving your customer, your value for your customers, and think about that first. So think in the business. Think about what is your value. And what I see in a lot of companies that are now more and more going into solutions is that they buy a solution with the goal of buying the solution.
Right.
And then they don't use that. Well, the technology will always be accepted if the performance expectancy is high, right? Otherwise,
Right.
it's just another tool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sometimes there's talk about that AI creates a more equal field and that you have democratization due to AI. That said, some others who think differently say it actually creates unfair advantage to the already large companies. Because AI, usually we're talking about sizable investments. If you're talking about creating your own data infrastructure, your own algorithms that create competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So what's your take on this whole discussion about leveling the playing field through AI?
Well, I think that the world is totally unfair. To start with that.
Right. That's a blunt
It's
statement.
like if you have money, you can create money.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And so if you have a big company, you have the money available to invest.
Yes.
So that's one important tool. So you can actually insource stuff, right? Create your own data warehouses, create your own systems, create basically everything for yourself.
Yeah.
Which means tailor-made to your needs to serve the customers. On the other hand, in the past, when you needed a simple system, you had to invest 50,000 euros, for example, for some licenses, for some hardware, etc.
Absolutely.
And now you go to a store, an app store, and within one day you're operational already. So just using simple solutions is now available for smaller companies. I remember in the Netherlands, we have 80% of the companies are like in transport, right? And 80% of the transport companies are really small companies with only 5 trucks, where the driver that is not able to drive anymore is put on to the planning, where the woman of the owner is doing the administration. This is reality. On the other hand, these 80% of the companies are only serving for like 20% of the volume.
Right.
Because the big companies like DHL, DSV, Renus, these kind of big companies, they have the volume.
Okay.
But they are really big size. So they have data scientists in the HR department. They have people walking around with a lot of knowledge.
Right.
And they have the budget. And because they have the budget, they can also invest long-term in knowledge building. And knowledge building is one of the biggest things in AI, that you start to become AI savvy,
right,
and that you understand it.
Right.
And these small companies just missed the boat. What they need to do basically is hire like just bachelor's, master students from universities that have the knowledge and put them into place in the right spot. But then the big companies come in, they offer more money. So again, if you have money, you can create money, right? So I think that the unfairness there, that there's a big risk that will increase.
Okay. That's okay. It's a grim outlook, but it's fair. Which parts, because we're talking mostly about 3PL, which already spans quite a number of segments within the supply chain, but which parts of the supply chain, according to you, are most vulnerable, if that's the right word? I wouldn't use vulnerable. Which elements would be more prone to be disrupted? I
think if you're looking at the different aspects in logistics, I'm just going to segment that in a way, but with talking about simple transport going from A to B, yes, you can optimize. Yes, there will be some risk, but again, it's a physical process. But if you're going to dive more into the make industry, right? So production companies, there's a big chance. I think these kind of companies have a big chance of improving a lot.
Okay.
Because the processes are really complex, sometimes so complex that a human is not even totally able to understand these kind of systems. And you can optimize in a way that people are just not able to optimize.
Yeah.
Having said that, also, for example, predictive maintenance. So if you're in the production, if you are a production company, you spend a lot of money in assets, optimizing your assets, making sure that the assets run all the time, because in the end, it's all about costs, right? But if you can optimize these kind of things, you can create extra capacity in your production machines, or even make better decisions on what to buy in the future.
Yeah.
So do we need this new machine? How can we make sure that we maintain this machine? Can we predict when it will break down?
Yeah.
So instead of repairing it, we can predict that based on sensors.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So these kind of industries where there's a lot of money involved in high investments, they have big advantages.
Okay. But so classical 3PL does not?
It depends. I think that 3PL is quite a broad thing, right? It's giving logistics services. It's a service provider. And sometimes simple service provider could be, I just have a warehouse, I have some pallet places in stock, you put it there, and if you ask me to bring an order, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's potential there, but still, most of the things are done by hand still.
Yeah.
There's already a big advantage if you just digitalize your simple process by hand. But the moment that you get into a more complex structure where you have value-added logistics, for example, well, then and the process becomes more complex.
Right.
Machines can give you more value.
Okay.
And it's not only about machines. It's the AI solution, but it's also about simplified conveyor belts that are actually communicating, connected over the internet, sharing data, even to robotics.
That's an interesting one, because last year at Manifest, so a large US conference about logistics, I heard one of the VPs at DHL say, look, if there are startups out there that bridge AI and robotics, and then especially for pallets in this case, we're willing to invest a lot of money. So for those out there listening, it's your opportunity. However, how do you think that, are these still different worlds? Are they growing together? What's happening?
They are definitely growing together. I think I just have an example from a warehouse where I was walking around, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And they are also investing in robotics. But they say, well, the problem in robotics is that you create a robot based on the order identity of the orders from our customers. So in this case, it was about televisions. But if the order identity of a television could be changed, TVs become bigger, robots become obsolete because it's not able to do that anymore.
Right.
Or you can still use the robot, but you have to reprogram that by hand. Yeah. Well, I saw a solution where there was a robot hand that wasn't programmed anymore, but it could actually learn by just moving it around. It would save the data, and then it could repeat the way that you moved the robot, and it could optimize the way it moved.
Okay.
And within 10 minutes, this robot was able to change from an order identity of a 42-inch television, pick it up, put it in the pallet in the right manner, etc., to a 65 TV. So instead of spending 3 weeks of downtime, spending a lot of re-engineering this robot, all of a sudden, this robot was re-engineering itself based on the order identity. Yeah. And I saw it happen, and I was sitting there. I was drinking 2 coffees. Yeah. When I finished my second coffee, the machine was running again in the warehouse.
That's insane.
So this is something that is going to happen more and more. And this is something that, going back to ChatGPT, ChatGPT basically started that. There's a UI, UX to make it simple.
Exactly.
So the moment that there's no technical involvement anymore, speed will go up. And these two worlds will come together. And Tesla is doing it with the robots in China. Yeah. They're creating all kinds of human droids. And they're starting to be more adaptive and learn themselves.
Right.
And then it's a great combination.
Interesting. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for companies still out there, I think, to bring those two fields closer together. Well, I personally also come from a SaaS background. Yeah. So the software as a service kind of thing that we're used to now with large platforms like, I mean, most TMS and WMS systems these days are, when they're coming out, it's SaaS definitely. But is it still a thing? I mean, should we still invest in another SaaS solution, or is the field quite saturated already?
I think that SaaS is still the future. To start with that. but there is a simple difference in the way that you look at SaaS solutions. In the past, you looked at the SaaS solution only from a point of view, what can it offer me as this small solution? Now you're going to see SaaS solutions more and more. What can it offer me in the ecosystem with the data connected to each other? So how is the interfacing of the solution? How does it talk with other solutions, not only in the interfacing, but could be physical as well? So, but what we do see is that in the world, the companies still are more willing to invest in pay by use, as in high price for insourcing. On the other end, big companies, and as university, we're also partly doing that, going back to a hybrid solution for the simple reason that we want to be compliant and we want to make sure that we are transparent and we have control over the data. Because this is something that has a big risk. If you have 10 different SaaS solutions and one of the SaaS solutions has a data leak, then we have a problem. And it's not in your control zone as a company anymore. So if you want to make sure that you are doing it in a safe manner and there's some high risk data there, then you could think about, hey, can we combine these kind of solutions? And again, then it's all about how does this solution talk to other solutions? SaaS is definitely something that is out there. It will stay out there and it will even be stronger.
Okay. Interesting take, because some people claim, SaaS is dead. Should all move to, now it's just basically user communities, citizen developers. Using or building their own low-code, no-code things with AI.
I totally agree with that. That it's a long-term thing. But we have to be realistic that in the world of logistics, we are not the most sophisticated world out there. So, yes, the big companies, we talk about it. The small companies are still... I visit like 10 companies a year where the planning is done by hand on the board. And if you know how to use the VLOOKUP or the XLOOKUP function in Excel,
then
you're the king.
You're the tech guy.
And you're the tech guy, right? So make sure that you look at the world in a realistic manner. So on short term, I think that we have quite some time before we are there.
Okay. All right. Sounds fair. Maybe one of the last things is differences in AI adoption. Especially in the logistics space between countries, because now for us as a company, Neon being, it's really important as we're trying to launch in the US and we're trying to get to know that market a bit better. Europe, or at least Belgium and the Netherlands, are quite, known to us right now. But what's your take on this? You're traveling all across the globe, so you're seeing different things. So what's your take?
Well, I can react in a personal way and I can react in a professional way, right? I think one of the biggest differences is the way that you look at the world in the privacy point of view. So in the Netherlands, in Europe, we have the GDPR. In the Netherlands, we have the AVG. Right? So there's already a lot of legislation regarding privacy, regarding doing it in a fair and honest way. And there's an AI Act. There's some discussion open what the potential value of that is or what the problem is there. But that means that because we have a lot of legislation, we're slowing down. It's just because we need to be compliant, right? So innovation is, sorry for saying that, but innovation sometimes is killed, not for the sake of that there's no potential of this innovation, but you're not allowed to use that. On the other hand, it does make life for the normal companies and the normal citizens a lot more safe. If you look at countries like United States, where there's different legislation, it also means that there's different ways of having freedom in using the data. If you look at China, there's again a total different way of point of view on what is privacy. I think that on one hand, I'm really happy with the fact that some legislation is set up. On the other hand, in the emerging technologies that we are, the risk is that you're slowing down a lot, killing good ideas, and that companies in the end will even go outside of Europe. And some great examples is Apple. They decided to not put into some solutions that they have put into the European market. Google, the Pixel Pro, the new phone from Google again, and I will receive mine in 10 days. So I have to wait for that. So this is assumption. So I'm not saying it's true, but they say that some of the functions are not available. And from personal point of view, I think if you are in the field of innovation, you should sometimes look at the intention more than the what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Right. I agree.
But it's a dangerous thing to say when you're working at the University of Applied Sciences.
Getting mad.
Social responsibility. Right? So,
Yeah. No, I get that. But maybe the very last question I wanted to ask you. So probably you're excited about quite a few developments in the AI field, especially when it comes to logistics. What's the one you would be most excited about? What's the thing that you say, okay, this is so cool?
What I do think is cool currently, and I have two examples. One of the real logistics part and one of my personal parts, right?
Yeah.
First of all, the logistics part, when I was visiting this warehouse and I saw this robot learning itself, I thought, hey, this is awesome because I could directly see the potential value there.
Yeah.
And I think that this is just the beginning.
Okay.
Because more and more simple user interfaces, user interaction with this kind of systems will be better.
Okay.
Right? And this is also part of what, for example, the chatbots are now doing. You can start having conversations with that.
Yeah.
What I'm personally more really interested in, and what I think is really exciting, is the moment that the video part comes in more. So I saw some images from Sora.
Oh yeah,
And I saw that, and yes, I do have some ethical questions about that.
Yeah.
Having said that, the potential, if you use it in the right way, it's massive, right? Because you can create things in a simple way of creating the right prompt instead of having a lot of money spent on solutions.
Absolutely.
So I think that the combination of the different technologies combined in one solution will be the most interesting one for me personally.
Okay. All right, Jan, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. You're actually the first one in the face-to-face vlog kickoff. So I think we had the pilot. I think now with pressure. So I think I hope it comes out fine. But I think in any case, I thank you for being here and traveling all that way to talk to us. So thank you so much, and let's see what the future brings. Right?
It was an honor. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Moving Mountains podcast, a proud realization of Nemeon.io. Comments, remarks, or kudos, reach out to Mark directly on LinkedIn.